Hi everyone, welcome back to this series of PMP practice questions. It's just been such an awesome journey so far. If you've been following from the beginning, you know this has been amazing. We're working on PMBOK 7th edition questions direct from the PMBOK guide. So how cool is that? We're learning and walking through the PMBOK guide even as we're answering scenario-based style questions, just like on the PMP exam. You know, it doesn't get much better than that. I'm having a great time. I hope you've had a good journey with me. And if this is the first one that you're watching, then welcome. This is going to get a little bit crazy because we're starting to get near the end of the PMBOK guide. So let's get into this. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. You have been asked to help facilitate a senior planning meeting in your organization. High-level executives have made a presentation on the strengths and opportunities of the organization. So strengths, oh, this sounds like SWOT, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. Painting a rosy picture. Revenue has fallen recently, and the chief executive asks you to level out their analysis with a more complete view. What will you do next? Okay, so we've got the strengths and opportunities. How do we level that out? We need the weaknesses and the threats as well. We need that whole picture, I think. Unless I'm off track there, but let's see if there's something like that in the answers. Add your organization's competitors and compare their products. Competitors could be something around there with our threats or our, maybe. Let's put a low maybe for now. Showcase the pipeline of upcoming work to be delivered in the next quarter. I'm not sure if that's relevant here, especially for what we're after. Let's put a sort of a no for that one for now. We can come back to that. Add in the background and abilities of the executive team that will allow the organization to deliver. I think we need a more rounded picture than that. We don't just need the good, we need the bad, and we don't just need, their background either. So I think that's probably a bit less relevant here. Brainstorm and capture the weaknesses, here we go, of the organization and threats to the organization. I think that's exactly where we're heading here. Let's go with answer D. All right, fantastic. This question is referring to SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Once strengths and opportunities have been captured, a complete picture also involves the weaknesses and threats. Page 175 under SWOT analysis in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. Wonderful stuff. How did you guys go with that one? All right, let's see what we have next. You are adding an essential feature to your product roadmap. Okay, very agile centric. Your team believe they can complete the feature in 6 weeks. However, the feature is quite large and a bit more complicated than normal. One of your lead developers says they worked on a similar feature in another company and it took around 4 months to complete. Okay, that's a good clue. What will you do next? So the team believe they can do it in 6 weeks, but someone else has worked on something similar in the past. And what is something similar? Similar is like an analogy. So that is analogous estimating, where we're looking at something similar and using that as a guide. So maybe it's going to be that. Let's have a look. Use relative estimating. So relative estimating is when we have the smallest piece of work that we could do, and that we assign that as, usually in story points as a 1, and then everything else is relative to that. So if it's twice as big, it's a 2, 3 times as big, it's a 3, 5 times as big, it's a 5. It's all relative to that first smallest piece. But I don't think that's relevant here. Use analogous estimating. Okay, so that's sort of what we were talking about. I think that could work. And place the feature with around 4 months to complete. That way we're a little bit safer. Maybe, I wonder if there's a better one, but that's pretty good. Use parametric estimating, and it looks like it's all just the different types of estimating here. So parametric is when there's a parameter, so $1 per meter, hour, dollar per hour, something like that. But I don't think we have any parameters to go off here. So let's put a no for now. Use function point estimating to show the amount of business functionality in the feature. And again, I don't think we have that information, so that's not really relative here. Out of all of these options, even though it's not, it's not really amazing, but it's probably the best option here. Analogous estimating, because of that scenario, they've worked on it in the past. Let's go with answer B. Okay, that was definitely it. When the effort on a feature or deliverable needs to be estimated, and there are people who have experience delivering a similar item, you can use analogous estimating. Like I said, it's an analogy. It's similar to something else. So we can estimate the effort quickly and with a medium level of accuracy because they've already done it in the past. Page 178, estimating, analogous estimating in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. Wow, all right, getting a little bit trickier. How did you guys go with that one? I think that was still pretty good. Good information to have as well. You have a prioritized backlog of features. Okay, very agile again. So lots of agile questions here. You have decomposed the next feature to be delivered into user stories. Okay, backlog of features, decompose them into user stories, and that can go into a sprint or multiple sprints to complete a sprint of 2 weeks. So that's good. The team would like to estimate the effort involved on those user stories, but are unsure on how to proceed. What will you do next? So again, this is on estimating. And remember in the last question, we were talking about, mostly on user stories, that's that relative estimating. Usually with the Fibonacci method as well, although, it can be various different ways. It's not mentioned specifically in the PMBOK guide, I don't think, but Fibonacci is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. So it takes the previous two, adds them together, and that's how you get the next number. The previous two adds it together, that becomes that one. So that's how Fibonacci works. And that's just the way to show the increasing complexity as things get bigger. But what are we going to do here for user stories? Ask each team member to add their own estimates as they complete the acceptance criteria. Potentially, that could work. That's a decent way to do it. Estimate the effort for the overall feature and reduce the need for individual story estimates. I think we still need the story estimates to put into the sprints so we can get our velocity, so how much we're completing on average within one sprint. Velocity is good. So that's a no on that one for now. Help the team perform relative estimating. Okay, this is what we're talking about, where the stories are sized in points relative to the smallest piece. That's probably the most common method for user stories. And they can do that. Oh, but you know what? If we're doing it on our own, then we don't have the benefit of doing relative estimating together, where now we're getting input from the tester, the developer, and everyone involved in doing the work. So that's a key piece there. I think that's pretty good. Base the estimates on cost per hour. That's our parametric estimating that we saw before, and add them after the work is done to ensure it's correct. Okay, well then it's not really estimating, is it? It's, we just know because that's what actually happened. So it doesn't really do us that much good. I think that's a no. Let's go with answer C. All right, wonderful stuff. Relative estimating is the most common method for user stories where they are sized in comparison to the smallest piece, often in story points and often on a Fibonacci scale, like we said before. Page 178 under relative estimating in the PMBOK guide. So that's actually pretty good information to know. All right, we are getting through these questions and you're doing a great job. How did you go with that one? I think that was pretty good. Let's see what we have next. You are halfway through your current sprint of 2 weeks. The work is progressing well, however you notice that there's not enough work ready and elaborated for when the next sprint begins. What will you do next? This is great, very agile centric as well. What do we do when we have our sprint, it's happening, we've got an upcoming sprint, but we only have that much work, we don't have enough work. So what do we need to do here? Hold a backlog refinement meeting and work with the team to identify the work that could be accomplished. I think that's pretty good. It's either that or a sprint planning meeting, except sprint planning happens just before the next sprint. We're halfway through this sprint. We've still got a little bit of time to go. So backlog refinement could actually be our one. Raise the issue as a blocker in the daily stand-up and ask your team to swarm around the problem. That's not bad, except swarming around the problem, then it's potentially taking people off the work. If we problem solved this with the team, maybe, but that is what a backlog refinement meeting is for, or a catch up. So, tricky situation. Raise the issue in the next retrospective and take an action for the team. That's decent, but it's going to be too late by that time because the retrospective happens at the end of a sprint. So, I think let's put a no for that one. Decent idea though. Place the cards on the Kanban board so the team can see the work and get started. I think we need to get the work ready. Has to be ready according to our definition of ready, DOR as well, you'll see. So all of that I think all of this is done in a backlog refinement. So I think we really need to go there. Let's go with answer A. Okay, good stuff. At a backlog refinement meeting, the backlog is progressively elaborated and reprioritized or prioritized to identify the work that can be accomplished in an upcoming iteration. Very nice. Page 179, meetings and events, backlog refinement. Good information to have, not just for the PMP exam as well. For the real world, I think that's pretty good. Okay, we're up to a question that's halfway through. You're doing great. Let's do this. You have completed a make or buy analysis in your project and found that part of your deliverable is best created by an external vendor. Sounds like a procurement happening, so this is good. These can be a little bit complex as well, so we'll see how we go. You work with your project team to create the procurement strategy, source selection criteria, and statement of work. So the selection criteria is, we know the reasons why we're going to select someone. So this is good. And what are we going to do next? So we've got our strategy as well, which is good. So gather the seller proposals, including technical details and price. Seller proposals. I think we need sellers first, actually. So we've got our source selection criteria. We need to find out who our sellers might be or could be. Meet with prospective sellers, could be good, to ensure all vendors have a common understanding of the procurement. That could be good. Let's put that as a maybe for now. Perform source selection on analysis on what you want from prospective vendors. I think we've done that already. Gosh, I hope I'm on the right track here. So let's put a no for that one for now. Create the procurement agreement for the third-party vendor to provide their specified services. I think the agreement is like a contract, so we're not at that stage yet. I think we need to meet with those sellers and make sure that we get the right sellers and that they all have the same understanding of the procurement so they can then provide, request for quote or proposal. I think that's probably where we're going. I think it's going to be answer B, but let's see. Okay, all right. Bit lucky there. These are always tricky, these procurement ones. These are the outputs of planned procurement management, a bidder conference. So bidder conferences, that's what it is meeting with prospective sellers prior to the preparation of a bid or proposal to ensure all prospective bidders have a clear and common understanding of the procurement. So that's good. This meeting may also be known as contractor conferences, vendor conferences, or pre-bid conferences. That's pretty good information to have too. Page 179 under Bidder Conference in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. Wonderful stuff. Well done, guys. How did you guys go with that? Did you get to the same place as I did? We just sort of eliminated the other ones, so it wasn't too bad. All right, next question. One of the stakeholders in your project has raised a change request after some of the deliverables contained defects and a missed requirement. Okay, your project has a formal change control process. That's good. As opposed to a more agile prioritized product backlog. Oh, that's good information to have. What will you do next? So formal change control, how do we work with that? Gather feedback from other stakeholders to see if they also need the change. I think it's pretty clear that we're going through with it. We've already raised the change request. Let's leave that off for now. Note the change in the change log. Yep. Then place the requested item in the next sprint. We need to go through the change control process. So again, it said a more formal change control process. We're not just putting it into the sprint, it has to go through that process. Take it to the change control board. Okay, that sounds good. Then communicate the decision to approve or reject the change. Definitely, yes. That's definitely your formal process. I think that's pretty good. Raise the request as an issue that will affect your project schedule and budget. I think that's not really what we're after here. So I think for our purposes, formal change control process, change control board, let's go with answer C. Excellent stuff. All right. Where a formal change control process is in place, a change control board includes the people who are accountable for reviewing, approving or rejecting changes to the project. The decisions made at this meeting are recorded and communicated to the appropriate stakeholders. So good information to have, good to know. Page 179 under Change Control Board in the PMBOK Guide as well. Really great. So you can go directly there and check that out for yourself if you really, really want to. That's good. All right, and we're more than halfway through now, guys. You're doing great. In this little section, 10 questions, nice and neat little bundle. You're doing fantastic. Your Agile project has recently gained some new stakeholders after a department restructure. Okay, new people, this is great. What do? They complain to you that they're not seeing enough traction of work delivered through the project, and they're worried that it will not meet their requirements. Okay, tricky situation. New people, all of a sudden, are the requirements different as well? What do we do next? Invite them to the daily stand-up so they can see the work that happens on a daily basis. I mean, the daily stand-up, depending on the methodology that you follow, some people say it should be open to any stakeholder. Other people say it should just be the development team, so that's from your Scrum. So look, there's a few different ways to do this. I don't know. Because of that, I'm not sure. I'd put that as a maybe. If there's a better answer, we'll go with the better answer, I think. Invite them to iteration planning so they can choose what the team works on. No, it depends on our situation. Do we have a product owner? Because the product owner needs to put that, choose what to work on, the highest value item, or what needs to be delivered next. So if we're just inviting all of these stakeholders, it's going to end up in a bit of a messy situation potentially. Let's put a no for that one for now. Invite them to the retrospective so they can raise their issue there and come up with a solution. That's a maybe. They're not really part of the core team, and really it's just to improve the core team's process. So that's probably not the best one. Okay, the last one actually looks pretty good. Invite them to the iteration review, so the sprint review, so they can see the usable increment that the team delivers. This is when we demonstrate what we delivered in that sprint, and we demonstrate it to our customers, to our stakeholders, to anyone outside the team who wants to see a usable feature that we have delivered and created during the sprint. So now they can see what's being delivered, and then they can comment on that and give their feedback. And that's that feedback process. I think answer D is probably going to be our one. Let's go with that. All right, wonderful stuff. The iteration or sprint review is held at the end of an iteration, usually of 2 weeks, to demonstrate the work that was accomplished during the iteration to the project customers and stakeholders, exactly like we said. That's very handy. Page 179, iteration review. Wonderful. Good work, guys. How did you guys go with that one? I think we got there eventually. It's a few good answers there too. It was pretty tricky. All right, only 3 questions to go, I think. You're doing great. Let's keep going. You have recently taken over a project. Your project team approach you to say that there is a regulatory approval that has not been granted yet, and it might block development of your project in the next 5 months. Okay, wow. You check your project documentation, but cannot see any mention of this. What will you do next? Okay, very, very tricky. So something coming up in the future as well, possibly a risk. If it's happened, it's an issue. Before it's happened, it's a risk, and we can manage that and put controls around it and that sort of thing, try and stop it from happening, or mitigate that risk anyway. Okay, let's see. Hold a risk review meeting, capture it as a risk, and ensure an adequate risk response. Well, that sounds pretty good. So we'll put that as a high maybe for now. Let's see what else we have just in case. Hold a retrospective with your team to capture what challenges the team are facing. I think there's probably a better answer there. Retrospective is for improving the team's process, maybe not all of these things, issues or risks. So adjust your product roadmap to reflect the changes to the time frame of that deliverable. We may not know yet because regulatory approval has not been granted yet, and it might block it, but we're not sure, and it's coming up in the next 5 months, so we're not sure on that either. So not sure if we can do that or if that's the best answer at least. Escalate the regulatory approval to the project steering committee. Okay, well, I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do about it because it's a regulatory approval. It's outside of their authority as well. Plus, we're the project manager. We really need to manage this as best we can instead of escalating it to someone else. All of this to say, I think let's go with answer A as the best option here. All right, great stuff. The risk review is a meeting to analyze the status of existing risks and to identify new risks. This includes changes to probability, impact or urgency, and determining if responses are adequate. So that's good to know. Page 180 under risk review in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. And we're down to the last 2 questions in this section. You've done an amazing job. How did you go with that? A little bit of risk, always good. You'll see it everywhere on your projects, so good to handle it now. Okay, you're an Agile project manager and holding daily stand-ups with your team. You notice people accusing other team members of not doing their job, and there are some tasks that are not mentioned anywhere and no one is responsible for. Okay, goodness. The team velocity has slowed in the last 3 sprints. What will you do next? Okay. And the team are having issues and troubles in our team process. So what do? We usually hold a retrospective. So I think if there's anything like that, we'll probably go with that. What's the first one though? Refer to the team charter. That actually could be good. And the team roles, also good. And agreed ways of managing conflict. Wow, that's actually really good. So that's a great answer. Let's see definitely, we'll see what else we've got just in case. Raise it as an issue in the next retrospective. Okay, so there's that retrospective. And come to a solution with the team. That's also a good answer. So all of these are good. Assign team roles to those you think are best suited. That's decent as well. If we're a manager on this project, probably a better answer than that one though. Let's put a low maybe on that one. Work with your team to size user stories correctly so velocity improves. So that's taking a different approach. But I think we're looking at roles here, roles and responsibilities. So let's put a no on that one for now. Between these 2, these are both good. So, that some tasks are not mentioned anywhere and no one is responsible for. So even if we go to the team charter, maybe it's not there. I think, we're saying that it's actually not listed anywhere. So in that case, we need to problem solve and probably update the team charter. So that's maybe a little bit of a trick. Again, I think we're coming back to that problem solving retrospective with our Agile team. Let's go with answer B. Okay, all right. 2 very good answers there, but I think, if the information isn't there, we can't refer to it. So, that's always that. The Agile approach is to problem solve with your team. A retrospective is a regularly occurring workshop similar to a lessons learned meeting where the team explore their work in order to improve their process and the product. Page 180 under retrospective in the PMBOK guide. Excellent. And what else is excellent? You made it to the last question in this particular question set. Amazing work. Let's see what this one is. I think this has been a great practice so far. You're managing a large construction project. Due to some delays, the project schedule has been pushed back by 1 week. As a result, one of the project risks has increased slightly, but is still within the acceptable limits. What will you do next? Okay. Hold a risk review and update the risk response and owners. Maybe. Raise a change request for the change to the project schedule. It's still within acceptable limits, so let's put a no for now. Capture the change in your project reporting and take it to the next status meeting. I think that's pretty good. We obviously want to keep our stakeholders informed, so I don't know. None of these are really speaking to me yet. Update the sprint backlog to reflect the delayed work. Oh, that's probably a no. Especially on a large construction project. So I think, maybe on a software project, maybe, but still not the best. So between these 2, so one of the project risks has increased slightly. Hold a risk review to update the risk response and owners. Do we need to update the risk response? It's still within acceptable limits, it says. Do we update the owners? No, not really. Okay, so purely by the process of elimination, this answer is okay. Communicating is always good. Taking it to the next status meeting, making sure people understand and know what's happening, definitely a good thing. So I think let's go with answer C. Okay, all right, that was pretty lucky maybe. How did you guys go with that one? Maybe you got straight there, I'm not sure, but yeah, it definitely, by process of elimination, does make sense. A status meeting is a regularly scheduled event to exchange and analyze information about the current progress and the project and its performance. Page 180 under status meeting in the PMBOK guide 7th edition. And so that's that. And what else is a good way to communicate is to communicate that we have made it to the end of this little section of PMBOK and project management questions and PMP questions. You have done an amazing job. I also want to say that I truly believe that you can pass the PMP exam, and when you do, it will really positively impact your life. I know it has helped me personally, and especially in my career. It's given me just such a great framework for working with projects and getting better outcomes that I could not get before. I truly believe that you can also do it, and we're working together, we're doing it every day and learning and improving. This is fantastic. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.